something extraordinary is passing through our solar system right now, and scientists cannot agree on what it is. The interstellar object Atlas, the third visitor from beyond our solar system ever detected, has accumulated 9 statistical anomalies that challenge everything we thought we knew about natural comets. When you multiply the probabilities of these anomalies occurring together by chance, the odds drop to 1 in 10 quadrillion. To put that in perspective, you're more likely to win the lottery jackpot, get struck by lightning, and be attacked by a shark all on the same day than for these 9 characteristics to appear naturally in a single object. Harvard astrophysicist Avi Loeb, former chair of the astronomy department and one of the most cited scientists in the field, has ranked Atlas as a 4 on his scale from 0 to 10, where 0 means definitely natural and 10 means definitely technological. But here's what makes this truly extraordinary. The most compelling anomalies aren't the ones we discovered first. As we've observed Atlas over the past 4 months, each new measurement has made the mystery deeper. The 9th anomaly, discovered just yesterday at perihelion, is perhaps the most difficult to explain with natural processes alone. Today, we're going to walk through all 9 anomalies. For each one, I'll explain what we're seeing, what it might mean if Atlas is artificial, and whether there's a plausible natural explanation. We'll build from the least suspicious to the most compelling, and by the end, you'll understand why some of the world's top scientists are taking seriously the possibility that we're observing our first confirmed extraterrestrial probe. Let's start with the anomaly that, by itself, might seem coincidental, but becomes far more significant when combined with everything else. Anomaly number 1, the ecliptic alignment. Atlas's trajectory is aligned to within 3 to 5 degrees of the ecliptic plane, the flat disk where all planets in our solar system orbit. For an object coming from deep interstellar space, where direction should be completely random, the probability of this precise alignment is only 0.2%. Now, what does this mean? Space is 3-dimensional. An interstellar object could approach from any angle, from above the solar system, from below, from any side. There's no reason a natural object from another star system should know about our ecliptic plane or care about aligning with it. But if you were designing a mission to visit multiple planets in our solar system, this is exactly the trajectory you would choose. The ecliptic alignment maximizes flyby opportunities with Mars, Venus, Earth, and Jupiter, while minimizing the energy needed for course corrections. It's the most efficient path for a grand tour of the inner solar system. Is there a natural explanation? Yes, absolutely. Statistical probabilities of 0.2% mean that roughly 1 in 500 interstellar objects might have this alignment by pure chance. We've only detected 3 interstellar visitors, so it's not impossible that Atlas just happens to be that lucky coincidence. However, and this is crucial, this anomaly doesn't exist in isolation. Keep it in mind as we move forward. Anomaly number 2, extreme negative polarization. When light reflects off an object's surface, it becomes polarized, meaning the light waves align in specific directions. Most objects in space, including all known comets, show positive polarization. The previous interstellar comet, Borisov, had positive polarization just like natural comets from our solar system. Atlas has extreme negative polarization, the most extreme ever measured for any comet. The probability of this occurring naturally is less than 1%. What could this mean artificially? Polarization reveals fundamental surface properties. Different materials, different surface structures, different geometries all produce different polarization signatures. The extreme negative polarization suggests Atlas's surface or structure is fundamentally different from any natural comet we've ever observed. If Atlas were a manufactured object, Its surface might consist of processed materials, metallic alloys, or geometric structures that interact with light in ways that natural icy rock simply doesn't. Think about how light reflects differently off a smooth metal hull versus a rough icy surface. Natural explanation? It's possible that Atlas formed in a stellar environment so different from our own, with such unusual surface chemistry or structure, that it produces this unprecedented optical signature. We don't have examples of this, but the universe is vast and diverse. Perhaps there are natural formation processes we haven't encountered yet. Anomaly number 3, extraordinarily low water content. Comets are fundamentally dirty snowballs. Water ice is their primary component, typically making up 80 to 90% of their mass. Water is abundant in the universe, and comets form in the cold outer regions of stellar systems where water freezes readily. Atlas contains only 4% water by mass. This isn't just unusual, it challenges the basic definition of what a comet is. Borisov, the previous interstellar comet everyone agrees is natural, had typical water-rich composition. So why is Atlas completely different? Artificial interpretation? If you were building an interstellar probe, you wouldn't make it primarily out of water ice. Water is weak. It sublimates easily when heated. It provides no structural strength. You would use metals, ceramics, processed materials that can withstand the journey through interstellar space and the intense heating at perihelion. A 4% water content is more consistent with a metallic or artificial object that happens to have accumulated some surface ice during its million-year journey through space, rather than a natural comet that formed from icy materials. Natural explanation? Atlas might have formed in a volatile, poor region of its parent stellar system, perhaps near a young hot star where water couldn't condense. Or it might be a fragment of a rocky core from a larger body that lost most of its volatile ices long ago. These scenarios are possible, but they require very specific formation conditions that make Atlas fundamentally different from every other known comet. Anomaly number 4. The anti-tail or sunward jet. Between July and August 2025, Atlas developed something astronomers call an anti-tail, material being ejected toward the sun rather than away from it. This is contrary to all normal cometary behavior. Here's why this is significant. When a comet approaches the sun, solar radiation pressure pushes gas and dust away from the nucleus, creating the classic tail that always points away from the sun. This is fundamental physics. Radiation pressure acts outward. Atlas did the opposite. Analysis confirmed this wasn't an optical illusion or a perspective effect. Material was genuinely being ejected against solar radiation pressure. Artificial interpretation? This could indicate active propulsion, a directed jet or thruster pushing material in a specific direction regardless of solar radiation pressure. If Atlas has internal systems, engines, or mechanisms designed to control its trajectory, we might see exactly this kind of behavior. The sunward jet could be a course correction, a small adjustment to Atlas's path as it approaches perihelion. The timing, occurring months before the closest approach, would make sense for a navigational burn designed to fine-tune the trajectory. Natural explanation? It's possible that internal pressure from sublimating gases created jets that happen to point sunward due to the rotation and surface features of the nucleus. Some comets show complex jet patterns due to their irregular shapes and rotation. However, for the jet to persist for months and overcome solar radiation pressure requires very specific internal structure and composition, making this explanation less straightforward than it might initially seem. Anomaly number 5. Impossible mass and speed combination. Atlas is approximately 1,000,000 times more massive than Oumuamua and 1,000 times more massive than Borisov. At the same time, It's moving faster than both of them. The probability of this specific combination being simultaneously much more massive and much faster is less than 0.1%. Why is this problematic? In interstellar space, larger objects typically move slower. This is due to the gravitational dynamics of how objects are ejected from their parent stellar systems. Small objects can be flung out at high speeds by close gravitational encounters. Large objects require much more energy to accelerate to high velocities. Atlas breaks this fundamental rule. It's huge and fast. Artificial interpretation? If Atlas is a probe or spacecraft, its size and speed would make perfect sense. A civilization sending a mission across interstellar space would want a large object, big enough to carry instruments, communication systems, power sources, perhaps even multiple smaller probes to release at different targets. And they would accelerate it to high speed, because faster travel means shorter mission duration. The combination that seems statistically impossible for a natural object is exactly what we'd expect from an engineered mission. For comparison, our largest rocket, SpaceX's Starship, is 100 times smaller than Atlas. The engineering required to build and accelerate a 5-kilometer object to these speeds would represent technology far beyond our current capabilities. But that's precisely what makes it worth considering. Natural explanation? Perhaps Atlas was ejected from its parent system by an unusually energetic event, a supernova shockwave or a close encounter with a massive star, that could impart both the size and speed we observe. This requires very specific circumstances, but it's not physically impossible. Anomaly number 6, industrial chemical composition. The gaseous plume surrounding Atlas contains much more nickel than iron, similar to industrially produced nickel alloys found on Earth. Furthermore, the nickel-to-cyanide ratio is orders of magnitude larger than any known comet, including Borisov. The probability of this composition occurring naturally is below 1%. Let me emphasize what this means. On Earth, this specific nickel signature appears only in controlled industrial processes, specifically in alloy production through the carbonyl process. This is not how natural cosmic chemistry works. Additionally, spectroscopic data from the Keck 2 telescope showed that nickel is concentrated in a 600-kilometer region of the nucleus, while cyanide extends for 840 kilometers. If both were naturally sublimating from ice, they should follow similar patterns based on their volatility and solar heating. They don't. The nickel acts as if it's part of an organized structure, not random sublimation from a dirty snowball. Artificial interpretation? If Atlas is manufactured, its composition would reflect processed materials, refined metals, alloys designed for specific purposes. The nickel-rich signature could come from structural components, hull plating, or internal systems exposed as surface ice sublimates. The spatial separation between nickel and cyanide could indicate different layers or components of an artificial structure, with metals concentrated in certain regions and organic compounds in others. Natural explanation? It's theoretically possible that Atlas formed in a stellar environment with unusual metallicity, where chemical processes we don't fully understand created this specific composition. However, we have no examples of natural objects with this chemistry, and we've studied thousands of comets and asteroids from our own solar system. This explanation requires invoking processes we've never observed. Anomaly number 7. Perfect timing for planetary approaches. Atlas's arrival was fine-tuned to bring it within tens of millions of kilometers from Mars, Venus, and Jupiter, while being completely unobservable from Earth at perihelion. The probability of this timing occurring naturally is 0.005%. Let's break down what this means. Atlas will pass 190 million kilometers from Mars, 97 million kilometers from Venus, and 54 million kilometers from Jupiter. These are close approaches by interstellar object standards, close enough for detailed observations by spacecraft orbiting these planets. But here's the extraordinary part. At the moment of perihelion, when Atlas experiences maximum solar heating and any internal systems would have maximum power available, it's positioned on the exact opposite side of the Sun from Earth. We cannot observe it during this critical window. Artificial interpretation? If you were designing a mission to study multiple planets in our solar system, this trajectory and timing would be ideal. You maximize close approaches to major planets. You have peak power available at perihelion if you're using solar energy, and you remain hidden from the most technologically advanced planet, Earth, during your most vulnerable or active moment. This timing also coincides with the presence of multiple spacecraft. NASA's Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter captured high-resolution images on October 3rd. ESA's JUICE probe will make observations in early November. NASA's Juno is positioned to observe near Jupiter in March. It's almost as if Atlas timed its passage to coincide with our current planetary missions. Natural explanation? This is where natural explanations become very strained. The timing is simply the result of when Atlas happened to enter our solar system and the orbital mechanics that followed. The close planetary approaches and the perihelion blackout are purely coincidental. With a probability of 0.5%, this means 1 in 20,000 interstellar objects might have this timing by chance. But remember, we're combining this with all the other anomalies. Coincidences add up. Anomaly number 8. The WOW signal connection. Atlas arrived from a direction coincident with the radio WOW signal to within 9 degrees. The probability of this directional correlation is 0.6%. For those unfamiliar with the WOW signal, it's one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in astronomy. On August 15, 1977, the Big Ear radio telescope in Ohio detected a 72-second radio signal so unusual, so powerful, so precisely at the hydrogen line frequency, that astronomer Jerry Amon circled it on the printout and wrote "Wow" in the margin. The signal matched all expected characteristics of an extraterrestrial transmission. It came from the direction of the constellation Sagittarius, from deep space. It was never detected again despite decades of follow-up observations. For 48 years, it has remained unexplained. Many scientists consider it the strongest candidate we've ever had for a genuine signal from an alien civilization. And now, an anomalous interstellar object appears from the same region of space. Artificial interpretation? If the WOW signal was indeed a transmission from an extraterrestrial civilization, and if Atlas is a probe from that same civilization, the directional correlation would make perfect sense. The signal could have been an announcement, a beacon, or even a warning about an approaching mission. This would mean the WOW signal and Atlas are connected. Two pieces of the same puzzle, separated by 48 years, but originating from the same source. The timing would be consistent with a probe that was launched after the signal was sent, or perhaps the signal was sent to announce the probe's arrival. Natural explanation? The directional correlation is coincidental. Space is vast, but we divide it into regions and constellations, with a probability of 0.6%. Roughly 1 in 167 interstellar objects might come from the same general direction as the WOW signal, purely by chance. This becomes less convincing when you remember the WOW signal itself remains unexplained. So we're compounding one mystery with another. Now we come to the 9th anomaly, the one discovered just yesterday as Atlas reached perihelion. And it might be the most difficult to explain naturally. Anomaly number 9, the blue color and non-gravitational acceleration. As Atlas passed through perihelion yesterday morning at 7:47 a.m. Eastern Time, observers using stereo, SOHO, and GOES 19 instruments detected something unprecedented. Atlas is getting bluer than the sun. This should be impossible for a natural comet. Let me explain why. First, dust particles in a comet's coma scatter sunlight, and they always redden it, making the reflected light more orange or red compared to the sun's original spectrum. This is basic physics of how dust interacts with light. Second, the surface temperature of Atlas is estimated to be about 20 times colder than the sun's photosphere, which is 5,800 degrees Kelvin. Cold objects emit redder light, not bluer light. This is black-body radiation, one of the most fundamental principles in physics. Yet Atlas is blue, bluer than our star. Additionally, and this is the truly extraordinary part, NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory has confirmed non-gravitational acceleration. Davide Farnocchia, a navigation engineer with a PhD in mathematics, filed a report showing Atlas is accelerating in ways that gravity alone cannot explain. The acceleration has two components: a radial acceleration away from the Sun at 135 kilometers per day squared, and a transverse acceleration perpendicular to the Sun's direction at 60 kilometers per day squared. Something is actively pushing Atlas, not just away from the Sun, but also sideways relative to its trajectory. Artificial interpretation? The blue color could indicate a hot engine or artificial light source. If Atlas has internal power systems that became active at perihelion, when maximum solar energy is available, those systems might emit light in the blue spectrum. Electric propulsion systems, plasma engines, or even directed energy devices could produce blue light. The non-gravitational acceleration strongly suggests active propulsion. The dual-component acceleration, both radial and transverse, indicates directional control. This is not random outgassing. This is thrust being applied in specific directions. If we calculate what this acceleration means for trajectory over the course of 1 month, Atlas will deviate from its purely gravitational path by about 60,000 kilometers, roughly 10 times the radius of Earth. That's not enough to dramatically change which planets it approaches, but it's enough to fine-tune the trajectory, to make small corrections. Exactly what you'd expect from a probe making navigational adjustments. Natural explanation? For the blue color, it could potentially be ionized carbon monoxide in the coma, producing unusual spectral signatures. Some molecular emissions can appear blue under specific conditions. This is possible but unprecedented in any observed comet. For the non-gravitational acceleration, if Atlas is outgassing violently at perihelion, the rocket effect from escaping gas could push the object. However, here's the problem. Avi Loeb calculated that if this acceleration comes from thermal outgassing at typical velocities of a few hundred meters per second, Atlas would lose half its mass in just 6 months. That means over the 1 month it takes to traverse the perihelion region, it should lose about 10% of its total mass. We're talking about hundreds of millions of tons of material being ejected into space. If this is happening, we should see a massive, absolutely enormous plume of gas and dust surrounding Atlas, something so large and bright it would be unmistakable in observations. ESA's JUICE spacecraft makes its flyby on November 4th, less than a week from now. If there's a massive outgassing event, JUICE will see it immediately. If the plume isn't there, or isn't nearly large enough to explain the acceleration, then the natural explanation fails, and that would leave us with only one conclusion. The acceleration is artificial. Let me now bring this all together. We have 9 anomalies, each with a small probability of occurring naturally. When we multiply these probabilities, we get odds of roughly 1 in 10 quadrillion. Avi Loeb emphasizes a critical point about scientific practice. At a Harvard astrophysics luncheon just yesterday, he told a room of over 100 scientists, "It is bad professional practice for theoretical astrophysicists to conclude that the data must be wrong just because they do not have a theoretical explanation for it. He was speaking about a different anomaly, the universe's expansion rate discrepancy, but then he added, needless to say, the same lesson applies to the anomalies of 3I Atlas. The data is telling us something extraordinary. We can invoke multiple rare natural processes, each individually possible but collectively implausible. Or we can consider the possibility that matches all the observations, that Atlas is artificial. Loeb ranks Atlas as a 4 on his technological scale. Not a 10, not definitive proof, but significant enough to warrant serious investigation using planetary defense resources. For the first time in history, protocols normally reserved for extinction-level asteroid threats have been activated for an object that cannot possibly impact Earth. Why? Because the implications are enormous. If Atlas is a natural comet, we're learning that interstellar objects can be far more diverse and unusual than we ever imagined. We're discovering formation processes in other stellar systems that produce compositions and behaviors we've never seen. This expands our understanding of planetary science and comet chemistry. But if Atlas is artificial, everything changes. We would have confirmation, not speculation, but actual physical confirmation of extraterrestrial technology, a civilization capable of building and sending a 5-kilometer object across light years of space, a civilization with engineering capabilities that make our most advanced technologies look primitive. Loeb points out that our biggest rocket, Starship, is 100 times smaller than Atlas. The engineering required to build, accelerate, and guide this object would represent capabilities centuries or millennia beyond our own. And that civilization, if it exists, chose to visit our solar system, chose this trajectory, chose this timing. The question isn't whether this is possible. The question is what the data is telling us. Science, as Loeb reminds us, is better than fiction. Nature might be more imaginative than the best Hollywood screenwriters. Rather than imagining what our cosmic visitor might be, we would be better off observing it. And that observation is about to intensify dramatically. November 4th, just days from now, ESA's JUICE spacecraft makes the first post-perihelion flyby at 64 million kilometers. This is the moment of truth for the outgassing explanation. If Atlas lost 10% of its mass, as natural processes would require, there will be an enormous plume. If there isn't, we have a major problem for the natural explanation. JUICE will also capture detailed images of the coma, measure brightness changes, and potentially detect the blue coloration that has scientists so puzzled. Spectroscopic analysis will reveal what gases are present, and in what quantities. December 19th, 6 days before Christmas, Atlas makes its closest approach to Earth at 269 million kilometers. Every major ground-based observatory will turn toward it. The James Webb Space Telescope will capture thermal signatures in unprecedented detail. Hubble will image the nucleus and surrounding material. Ground-based telescopes will track its exact trajectory, measuring velocity changes and confirming whether the non-gravitational acceleration continues. March 16, 2026, Atlas passes Jupiter, with NASA's Juno probe providing frontline observations. Juno's radio antenna will scan for transmissions, any signals that might indicate technological origin. This is our final major observation window before Atlas leaves the inner solar system and begins its journey back to interstellar space. By the end of March, we will have months of post-perihelion data. We will know if the trajectory changed in ways consistent with pure gravitational physics plus random outgassing, or if the changes show directed control. We will know if the blue color was a temporary phenomenon or a persistent signature. We will know if massive amounts of material were lost or if Atlas remained largely intact despite accelerating. The answers are coming. The data will arrive, and then we'll know. Is Atlas an exotic natural comet from a stellar system with chemistry and formation processes unlike anything we've encountered? Or is it our first confirmed observation of extraterrestrial technology? A probe from a civilization that sent the wow signal 48 years ago and has now arrived to study our solar system? November 4th is less than a week away. JUICE makes contact. The first post-perihelion images will arrive. The scientific community will analyze every pixel, every spectrum, every measurement. This is history unfolding in real time. This is not speculation about distant possibilities. This is happening now, in our solar system, with an object we can observe and measure. Stay connected, because what we learn in the next 6 weeks could answer questions humanity has asked for thousands of years. The mystery of Atlas is about to reveal its secrets, and we're going to witness it together. Subscribe and turn on notifications, because when JUICE sends back those first images on November 4th, you'll want to know immediately what they show. The data is coming. The truth is coming. And we're about to find out if we're truly alone in the universe, or if something extraordinary has come to visit.